People who were emotionally neglected as children are vulnerable to falling in love and staying stuck in love with people who don't love them back. And this can turn into a supercharged emotional state called limerence, where you find yourself avoiding real people and real responsibilities in favor of fantasizing about what it would be like if you could be with this person who you can't have. Sometimes it's somebody you know really well, sometimes it's a stranger or a movie star, but even when it's someone you know and you have communication with, you will find yourself not disclosing how you really feel. Instead, you'll be like thinking all the time about, if I just said just the right thing, wouldn't it be amazing? I could tilt my cards so that they could see a little bit, but I wouldn't be held responsible for saying that I was into them. And then I could find out if they were into me. You'll just find yourself obsessing on that a lot, searching their social media to see, is there a sign for me encoded in what they're putting out there? These are signs of limerence. So the thing with limerence is you end up putting a lot of energy, though, not into finding out, hey, do you feel the same way? You put the energy into not having any real communication about your feelings. Why? Because if you were to disclose, it would almost certainly get shut down by the other person. You know that, or it would have proceeded along more natural lines for a relationship of disclose. But you can tell it's not going in a great direction. And then it's the longing. It's not the resolution that you want. It's the longing to go on and on. That's the exciting, intense feeling that keeps you going. There's like this addiction to that hope about the person. And so you don't want to mess with it by actually telling the truth. And I don't think any of this is conscious. Once in a while, rarely, a person gets to actually, disclose, and guess what? They both want a relationship. And the relationship changes from a limerent one to an actual relationship. And the question is, can that work? My letter today is from a woman called Sina, and she writes, "Hello, Anna. I'm reaching out in hopes of some honest advice from someone who gets it because I'm in a rather confusing situation. I myself had a fairly crappy childhood. I've got my pencil. I'm circling that to come back. I'm going to read Sina's letter all the way through, see what's going on, and then I'll see if I can help. She says, my parents failed me and my siblings in a lot of ways. There was so much anger and emotional neglect. Oh, there we go. Those are the conditions that give rise to limerence. I would often turn to my own imagination for a sense of comfort. I would imagine myself in fantastical scenarios with an abundance of romantic love and drama. It was an innocent form of escape as a child. But unfortunately, as I matured, I started projecting these imaginary scenarios onto real-life people. I would obsessively think of them and how it would be if they only knew how I felt for them. I only just learned this past year that this is called limerence. I have had countless limerent obsessions in my life, and when one goes away, my brain always seems to find a new one. I thought I had finally cracked the code when I started dating my current boyfriend, but apparently did not. I met my boyfriend Mark at work 5 years ago. I thought he was cute the second time I met him, and in my mind, I knew it was going to be trouble. He was the new guy, so me and my work buddy slowly befriended him, and it was then I found out that Mark had a girlfriend. I was a little disappointed, but I brushed my shoulders off and decided to just be his friend, and it worked for a long time, until it didn't. I had gotten myself into a horrible, emotionally abusive relationship with a guy I met on a dating app. I felt absolutely trapped in it. I started fantasizing about Mark and what a nice guy he was and how happy I would be if I was with him. I look forward to going to work every day just to be able to look at him from across the room. The smallest interactions would have me riding a high for hours. I was full-blown obsessed, and when I found out he and his girlfriend broke up, that only strengthened my obsession. I would think of him night and day, suffering through my relationship, just dying to be with the man I knew I was destined for. Then the funniest thing happened. When I finally got the courage to break up with my boyfriend, there Mark was, apparently patiently waiting for this day. I couldn't believe it. My limerent dream had finally become reality. My dream guy actually wanted me too, so much he could hardly wait to tell me. It felt unreal. It felt amazing. We started officially dating only a month after my ex and I had broken up, and I was so ridiculously happy. After dating for a month or so, my limerent obsession was gone, and it had been replaced by real, genuine, reciprocated feelings of love. We've been together for almost 3 years now, and though he's not perfect, he's a wonderful and absolutely lovable guy. We have had some ups and downs, but we always seem to work it out in a healthy and respectful manner. We no longer work together, so we don't have to worry about our work relationship dynamic anymore either. Unfortunately, it can't just be a happy ending, though. I work at a small family-run business. For years, it has just been me, my boss, and his eldest son. About 2 years ago, my boss brought in his younger son to start working with us part-time. I didn't think much of him at first. To me, he was just a quiet and serious kid, and we had an age gap, so I thought we wouldn't have much in common. He was 19 at the time, and I was 26. The more time we spent together, the more we realized we actually have a lot in common, and we got along very well. At this point, I didn't have a crush on him because I still thought of him as a kid, but one day something just changed. I woke up in one morning and I thought of him, and then I said to myself, oh crap, I have a crush on the kid. At first I thought maybe it was just a harmless little crush, and then the obsessive thoughts started kicking in. I told myself just to keep him at arm's length while I get a hold of these feelings, but I was already such good friends with his older brother, so we kept being invited to the same social situations. It became a constant fight for me to just wanting to be his friend, and my brain wanting to obsess over him. After a while, the obsession won. It was too late. I was addicted to being near him, and I'd find any excuse to talk to him, to hang out with him. We'd stay after work together and talk for hours, and then I started getting sneaky. I'd stop making mention of my boyfriend whenever we talked, and I'd intentionally find ways not to invite Mark to things if I knew that the young guy was going to be there, and I was getting away with it. I'd tell myself it was fine because it was not like we're having an affair. It's all in my head. And I started to think of the young guy when Mark and I were having sex, and that was when the guilt started to really set in for me. I'd become so wrapped up in my new obsession, I was no longer mentally in my relationship anymore. But I didn't know how to fix it. I still don't know how to fix it. The young kid is an addiction for me, and since I have to be around him, I can't quit. I feel immensely guilty all the time, knowing I'm not fully and truly devoted to Mark anymore. I don't understand why this happened in the first place, since I already have a loving man, and it makes me question whether my relationship will last. How can I ever be in a healthy relationship if limerence is going to come knocking for the rest of my life? And that's Sina. Thank you, Sina. This is really serious. I was sort of laughing as I read this, but it's not funny. Sina, you're at risk here of ruining your ability to have a good relationship, and also of disclosing feelings to somebody to whom it's truly inappropriate. I realize a 19-year-old is not illegal for a 26-year-old, but it's not healthy for him. It's not healthy for you, and it would be a terrible shame if you were to throw away a good relationship with someone who loves you. Perhaps some people will say, oh, your limerence is a sign you're not into, Mark. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's a sign of anything except that you have an addiction, and you need some time to work out the addiction, and then you can discern what's up with Mark. It's not too late. It sounds like it's not too late. By the way, it is an affair. It's an emotional affair you're having, even if the kid doesn't know that he's in that with you. Although on some level he does. He may be in denial about it, or he may not know what to make of it. Let's see. You had a crappy childhood. There was anger and emotional neglect. That's where limerence gets started. You had to develop an imagination. And so this is what happens. You got through your childhood with this great imagination. Now you're an adult. You said your limerence had already happened again and again, and this was sort of how you were imagining your future, is through these fantasy relationships. And then life surprised you, and you got something that few of us ever have, which is you get to have a real relationship. And from what I've read, because I've never ended up together with somebody after limerence, what you experienced was what I've read is normal. It makes a shift. And either it just turns out to be bogus, right? Or it turns into a real loving relationship, and that clears up the limerence. And that happened for you. And that's okay. Because limerence is really, it's like all the phenomenon of falling in love. Like everybody feels that at the beginning of a relationship when they've fallen in love. But with limerence, it goes too far and it's attached to somebody who you're not really with. And so it's like this hemorrhaging of your life force out into nothing. All right, but you got together with this guy and he was only waiting. I mean, it was just appropriate. You did it right. You got it. You felt like you were destined for him. And then after a few years, it just couldn't go well. So you work at a place where there's this young son of the boss, and you're telling me that you want to get over this. And I'm going to tell you right now, here's what you do. You're going to have to quit that job. There are other jobs, but there is no way that somebody limerent can keep being around somebody when it's this out of control. So if you really want to save yourself, even if you don't care about saving your relationship with Mark, just because you know yourself, you know that you get into this intense thing that would be really uncomfortable and weird, and it would mark your resume. And the right and healthy thing to do is to leave this job. You never have to tell people why. You just move on to a new opportunity as soon as you can. With limerence, you will find it so helpful to think of it like a strong drug, like heroin. It's an addiction. And if somebody were on heroin, you wouldn't say, hey, just do half as much, or do heroin, but tell yourself that it's not really going anywhere and you won't do it forever. You would say, you have to stop, right? You have to stop all the way, and it's going to be hard and there's going to be withdrawal. And so it is with you. You stop cold turkey. You don't see him. You don't talk to him. If you catch yourself thinking about him, you stop thinking about him. People go, I can't do that. It's like, no, of course, we get intrusive thoughts. But I teach these techniques, the daily practice, where you can write your fearful and resentful thoughts. So fear, I'm never going to see him again. Fear, he's the one for me. Fear, I never felt more like myself than when I was around him. You can put this in there and then you sign it off and you're done. And you get to do that twice a day. And those are your windows when you can visit your intrusive thoughts as freely as you want and get them on paper and have them removed. When you stop making contact with the person or the thoughts or the discussion of them, then it will fade. It will fade. So what it is you have a persistent addiction to a fantasy. If it's not this one kid, it's going to be the next guy, right? So I would just really recommend you treat it like you have an addiction and take care of yourself in the way that an addict does, where it's not a one-time decision to stop. It's a way of life where you know that you have this tendency. And this is what addicts do and alcoholics is they have, they work a program of recovery, which you could do in a 12-step program like Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. That's one place. You can do it in my program, in our membership. You can take my dating course if you want to learn how to get very in touch with the truth of what you want, to start developing your discernment, and then to make friends and develop a community of like-minded women who are walking a similar path with you, who can support you and who you can be totally honest with. You can say, I'm just having a really hard time. I treated my boyfriend like with coldness because I was thinking about this obsession I have. And they can go, all right, let's help you just kind of walk through the drill that you created for yourself to let go of the obsession, come back to reality. I know of no other way. There's no other way to let go of this kind of obsession except to commit yourself to do it, to recruit friends and fellow companions on the path with you, and then to work a program that's designed to help you be honest with yourself and keep healing the trauma wounds that keep springing up. Trauma wounds, they have like all these different ugly hydra faces that it comes up in. It could come out as lashing out. It can come out with, fantasy. It can come out with avoidance and isolation. Like we all have a mix of some of these. And this is your special one. I just really encourage you to take it seriously. It sounds like you have a great relationship. And if you can stop now with what you're doing, it would be a way to honor your boyfriend for being the good guy he is to you. If it doesn't work out, you're still going to need help with this addiction. You're still going to need help with it. And who knows, we don't know what's in your future, but being addiction free, learning to just live in your own mind and in reality is delicious and true and freeing and peaceful and opens your life to all good things. So I hope that helps. If you're watching this and you want some information about my dating course that helps deal with that kind of magical thinking and fantasy that we're talking about, there's a link to it right here. You can check that out, and I will see you very soon.